Hey guys, what's happening? Jay here. This is smarthelping.com. We're going to go through this new financial model. It's called an AI Agentic SaaS business. And it's pretty much like a regular SaaS business, except we have usage and pricing based on that. Um, my goal here with this template was to make something very high level, very simple, but still useful. And so you've got all the assumptions here on the assumptions tab, single page. Then we've got monthly projections based on that, annual summary, investor returns, executive summary, and charts. So let's go through and talk about what you could do with this model. And I'll do that by first going through the assumptions and explaining things as I go along. So your top here, you're going to edit only cells in yellow with blue text. You can go up to 60 months, and you could change this. Say I want to do 36 months. You can see the data changes over here, and I put the pro forma and investor returns rate on the same tab as the assumptions, so you don't have to click around too much if you just want to see the bottom line effects of changing things. So 60 months, we'll put starting cash 100,000. That plus the founding investment is going to be your starting cash balance. This might be zero or this might be zero, just depend, but you've got some flexibility there with your starting cash amount. And then the first big section is customers. And normally I've done, probably 15 or 20 different recurring revenue and SaaS models that all are quite in-depth, granular, and just have more detail. But there is some value, I think, in a high-level view. And being able to just adjust a couple things, do some high level changes, and see what the numbers look like. In general, you'd probably be doing more conservative figures and seeing if it works out on this model, and then you might take that business case, if it looks like it might work, and then go into a more detailed model and spend more time. But this is more for a quick analysis. So our assumptions here for customers, start month number, so you can pick when these customers start coming on board. You can pick the starting customer count right here. So whenever that start month hits, this is the starting customers. And then you could pick one number for the new customers added per month. And that will drive all the assumptions. You can see here if I put, 100 new customers a month over 5 years, the numbers change. And you can see customer counts over here and seat counts. This model is primarily based on the amount of seats each customer has, and then their usage. It's going to drive revenues, as well as the seat revenue, which is a recurring. And there's also one-time revenue here, implementation fees, which could be zero or they could be some number that's not zero. Okay. Anyway, back to this. You can override this. So let me put this back here. You don't have to use this if you don't want. You can go to the monthly projection, and you could just change this right here. If you want to adjust the monthly new customers and make it every month, let's say, instead of 20, you want to do 100, and then maybe you want to do, 1,000 in another point. You can do that, and this is connected, so you won't break anything except for the connection between this input right here, for new customers. And you could do that if you want to scale more, but at the highest level and for really a simple model, the default version is you just define a simple monthly amount here and see what the numbers look like. It could be really high, really low, what have you. But again, it's not hard to override that input if you want. So based on the churn rate, which is just going, and again, I've done way more complex retention and churn rate stuff. This is very simple, but it can be effective in just saying, what percentage of the customers that you have each month leave or cancel. And so that's the percentage. It just applied to the previous month's ending balance, and that's how much you lose. And if you take that against how much you had plus what's added in the new month, that's your balance, rolling balance, which is this section right here. So these are going to do, customers added, less churn, plus ending customers for the previous month, and that's how that works. That'll just be multiplied by the seats per customer to get your total seat count. And then you could do your revenue per seat to get total revenue, or your pricing per seat. You can set the pricing per seat per month right here, implementation fees, and that's how you're getting your primary, or at least your first revenue stream. Now, once you have that configured, there's also some other things that are going to be based on that. For example, the number of seats in each customer tier times usage is going to drive usage revenue. So here you can do tasks per day per user on average, how many reasoning steps per task, tokens per call number. So let's say here it's 500 tokens per call, and then how much you're charging per 1,000 tokens. And then you do some math there to figure out how much revenue you're making based on user usage. You also have a cost per 1,000 tokens. There's a retrieval calls per task count, and then there's a cost to that as well, and also payment processing fees. And that all flows down here. So you've got your seat revenue, we've got implementation one-time revenue based on the customers added per month, and then we've also got the usage here, and then here's your usage revenue, and then total revenue for all the tiers, and then total revenue here. Then you have your direct costs for usage and retrieval, payment processing, and total cost of goods sold. And that's how we get down to gross profit. And then we have gross profit margin, which is just your gross profit against the total revenue. So that's the first two main sections. You can play with all those assumptions. And one interesting thing, so here we did, one benefit of having every input on a single tab in simple input is you could do a lot of different sensitivities. So here, for example, you can see how the equity multiple changes, and that's just the return on the invested capital basically over the whole project. You can see how that changes if your pricing changes. And interestingly, so you see here the change, you got about 0.6 or 0.7, not a huge difference in prices with the multiple and a different costs per 1,000 tokens and different pricing. However, what if we had more tasks per user? Let's say this was 35, and now you're going to see the spread widen out. Now you've got, on the low end 14x versus 19x, because your usage is now a greater part of your total revenue, which we can see. We've got a chart for it over here. So percentage of annual revenue by stream. So here we've got usage revenue versus seat revenue. So depending on what our assumptions are, that this pricing could have a larger or not so much impact depending on what this base assumption is here. If we put it back to 5, then, usage is just not that big of a revenue stream, so no matter what these prices are or costs, it's not really going to impact that much. More importantly would be maybe churn rate for the seat revenue, and then this third sensitivity, you can actually see if we sensitize this input itself. So what if there's 5 or 10 or 25 tasks per user per day, and then against different prices, and then what's your multiple return on the project? So there's a lot more you could have done. If you know data tables, you could do a lot of different variations here. And the nice thing about a simple model is that the data table, which has to run the model in the background for every box, basically, you can do a lot without slowing the model down. If you have a more complex model and you have one of these, even one table that's a 3x3 table could still slow the model down a lot. So that's another benefit of a quick, simple template that still gets you kind of the high level, the gist of the business case, and you could do fairly in-depth analysis on synthesizing some of these variables. Okay, so that's all your revenue, your direct costs. Then we have operating expenses, so super simple. You've got R&D, what's your monthly cost, annual growth, sales and marketing as a percentage of revenue, G&A and then a growth of that, your monthly G&A cost, and then CapEx spend per month. And that's it. And then that's how we're already down to EBITDA at that point, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, and your margin on that against revenue. When you factor in CapEx, investments, and exit valuation, we now have every component to cash flow in the model. And you can see we track the cash over time. You don't want your closing cash to be negative. That means you didn't raise enough money relative to how much burn you have in your model over time and initial investment happening. The reason why I did this delay in the start month of revenue is so you could plan out what happens when you might have some OPEX going on before revenue, so that allows you to see a little bit of granularity there. If you wanted it really simple, you just assume everything starts in month one, all customers and everything else. But I try to get some granularity into the model, even though the idea is to have it very simple with little things that can break. Then you have fundraising and exit. The fundraising is money coming in to fund the project. So we've got founder investments, and then we have round 1, 2, and 3. And you don't have to use all 3 rounds. You can zero them out just by zeroing out the multiple and the amount raised. For example, I could put 0 here, and now effectively, oh, sorry, not 0, 1, and zero out the round amount, and then effectively you just skip the round. So, and I put a note here, this is a valuation increase multiple, and a note here of how to properly zero it out, put a 1.0 multiplier and 0 for the amount raised in the round, and you effectively just revert to the previous round's numbers. Let me undo that. And you can do that for both, like if I wanted to only use 1 round of fundraising, I could do that, and you can see it's 50-50 here based on the funds raised, valuation, and then we've got dilution happening. Let me undo my stuff here. So dilution is just like if we raise more money in round 2 and we raise $4 million, our pre-money valuation, which is a defined amount, we could say this is a multiple of the previous round's pre-money valuation. So we were at 2. Let's say now we're at 2x more than that, so it's at 4. We also raised $4 million, so you're at 8. Well, now the seed is diluted a bit, about 50%, so you're going from 50% to 25. The Series A is getting whatever they invested against the post-money valuation as their share, and then the ownership for founders is the rest. And same logic applies here. You just gotta have more 2 rounds that are getting diluted. Third round's just getting the valuation that they of the round itself, and then your founders get the rest. So you can play with this. You can see the investor and founders IRRs, return multiples, percentage shares at the end, the total invested, total returned, and the total invested and return for the project, which is this equity multiple for the project is what you're seeing in these sensitivity tables. Exit, just pick a multiple on ARR. You research it for your industry, and then that is going to drive the final exit value here. I'm sorry, right here. And then the model will assume no distributions happen until the exit month, and then it'll take any profits that were there plus the exit value, and that's what's distributed. And you can see that on the investor returns. Now I had to time it to do the IRR, so you have timing for when the cash is invested, and then whenever the exit happens, all of that cash is going to hit each entity to calculate the IRRs and returns. Management equity share, so that's going to be founders. So this is not relevant for how I structured this. Don't worry about that. You'll just have founders and then 3 rounds. What else do we have here? I put the annual pro forma rate on the main assumptions tab so you can see what happens as you change these figures. For example, what if we only charged $40 a seat for price per seat for SMB? Um, our closing cash goes from 169 down to 166 million, and our equity multiple, it was at 13.8, goes down to 13.5. So it's pretty nice to be able to adjust these and not have to go to different tabs. Um, Although there are these tabs, you can look at a more granular view of how we're getting to the cash flow each month. There's also an annual summary. This is less detailed than the monthly. We've also got some revenue details here for chart data. Executive summary, just some high level metrics. Charts, we've got annual revenue, annual EBITDA, gross profit, EBITDA margin, gross profit margin, monthly closing cash. And we've got seat count by customer type, um, active customers by type. So seats are going to be obviously more. Monthly revenue by customer type, annual revenue by stream. So this is again where you see usage versus seat revenue, and then one-time fees are not in here because, or you can barely see them because they're so small compared to the other streams of income. I also broke revenue down by customer type, so you can see by SMB, mid, and enterprise. Where's your revenue coming from over time based on those assumptions, and what's that percentage of each revenue stream of the total revenue here. This is the one by revenue stream, and then this is the annual percentage by customer type. So these, you can see this is revenue by stream. Here's the percentage breakdown. This is revenue by customer type. Here's the percentage breakdown of that. One thing to note, the ARR multiple applies to seat revenue plus usage revenue, but it does not count on one-time revenue because that's not really considered part of your run rate. It's a one-time fee. It's not recurring. All right. Well, that's the whole template. If you want to download it, it is available at smarthelping.com. It will be in the, if you go to the home page here, it'll be in the second section, SaaS, subscription, and tech. I will put it right here in the as a service models, and you can see I've got a lot more detailed things. The closest detailed version of what I just went over just now is the function as a service. You can check that out if you want a more comprehensive view, but it is a lot more tabs and just a lot more complexity. Anyway, you can buy all these for one-time fee. The model I just went over today is going to be a $45 one-time fee. It'll be included in this bundle as well for $289. I'm also going to put it in the data tables bundle, so let me go find that in the pre-configured section. Data tables down here. So these are all the models that have built-in data tables. And then finally, it'll be part of the Super Smart Bundle, which is where you can buy everything I've ever built and includes access to everything I build in the future for a one-time payment of $4.99. We've had a lot of people buying this lately, and I think it's a great deal. I mean, I've spent over a decade building things and organizing it into all these different financial models you see on the site. Well over 200, maybe even coming up on 250, just for all sorts of industries. I've worked with clients, billion-dollar clients, $100 million clients, $1,000 startups with no money, everything. I've done it for everyone. So I've used that knowledge to build a nice library here of Excel spreadsheets for you to check out. You can hire me as well. $275 an hour. Usually I'm pretty quick with the turnarounds, and jobs take between 1 and 5 hours for one-time things. I have longer-term gigs as well, maybe a couple hours here and there every month, or every couple months people come back. That's fine as well. You can email me, jason@smarthelping.com, for any questions or to engage in possibly a job. Alrighty. Well, that's all I got for you. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.